What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Brandon's Face. It's the podcast about a playlist. I'm Jonathan Beardsley.
And I am Brandon May.
We hope you're all doing well. On this week's episode, we will be breaking down new releases from Paramore, Pierce the Veil, In Flames, Tennis, Kelela, and much, much more. I'm excited to get into all of that, but before we do, please give us a follow wherever you get your podcasts. If you're following along on YouTube, give us a like and let us know what you think in the comments. And follow along with the weekly rotating playlist so that you'll know what we'll be covering every week, which you can find a link to in the show notes below. With all of that out of the way, we can begin, but anything you want to chat about before we do?
No, I think I'm good. I thought I had
All
something
right,
and then I
man.
forgot, but I'll bring it up if I remember.
Skrillex, Fredigan, and Fortet selling out Madison Square Garden in 3 minutes.
Oh yeah, that's big, bro. That's huge.
Yeah, we will be talking about the new Skrillex album next week, but I highly recommend if you're into EDM or a fan of his, you start following along on social media with the insanity that this rollout has been, just nonstop shows by the three of them. Pretty much put together and sold out on the spot almost instantly every time.
It's
They
amazing.
just fly into a city and it's like, we want to play a show tonight. The fact that they could fly into New York and just book a show for Madison Square Garden on Saturday is insane.
Insane.
But we'll talk about that more next week. So let's dive into this week's playlist, man.
Let's do it.
First up, this week we have an absolute banger from BENEE called Green Honda. I am loving this one. How about you?
Such a great track, man. BENEE just continues to kill it. You are correct. This is an absolute banger.
As always. Up next, we have two of my favorites on the same track. It's the new version of Special by Lizzo featuring SZA. Special was my favorite track on Lizzo's last album. Adding SZA to that only made me love it more. How are you feeling about this version?
This is a fantastic duet. I really love the chemistry that their voices have together on this one. I think they're just both killing the game right now. I loved this track and just needed to say, John, you're special.
Thank you. Thank you. I hope we get an extended version of this. 2 minutes and 55 seconds was not enough for a duet between the two of them.
Highly doubt we'll get an extended version of this, but hopefully they liked working together enough to maybe do that again.
I think they did. I believe Lizzo's HBO special came out like a month or so ago, and I think SZA makes an appearance during that show. So they're clearly
Nice.
friends and friendly.
Nice.
All right. Next up, we have a new one from Dove Cameron and Khalid called We Go Down Together. Both artists have really good voices, and this is well written and produced pop duet that I'm sure will stream well, but it's a little bit boring and generic. Do you feel any differently about this one?
Same exact, same exactly, man. The harmonies are fucking great. I loved the vocal performance on this one, but it's just too slow for me, man. There's
Yeah.
there's some real musicality happening here, though, and I have to appreciate that. I just don't have to like it.
Yeah. Let's go with that. Next up, we have the Wetter remix of Cuff It by Beyonce. And let me just say, man, I'm going to need an entire Wetter remix of the album because this is fucking incredible. As I understand it, the original mashup of Cuff It and Twista's track Wetter was done by DJ Eccentric. Upon hearing it, Beyonce wanted to add a new verse and a bunch of new background vocals to make it an official remix. So her being Beyonce, that's exactly what she did. I'm sure that's an oversimplified version of, at best, what happened, but the end result is this gift from the gods and my song of the week. What about you, though? Are you enjoying this one nearly as much as me?
No, it's fine.
I didn't think so. You are a
It's
Twista
just
fan. I was
it's
wondering if
just
you'd pick
fine.
up on that.
Yeah, I didn't. I didn't do any research, and I didn't pick up on it, but I do like Twista.
Yeah, who doesn't love some Twista? All right, man.
He does.
What?
Does he do slow jams? Yeah, he was on slow jams,
Yeah,
wasn't he?
of
All
course.
right.
Of course, Twista's on slow jams. That's the best part of the song, man.
That
He's
was-
also Overnight Celebrity, another Kanye Twista classic. He's got a bunch, man. We'll dive
oh
more into
yeah,
Twista one day. He's got a really slept on one with T-Pain called Creep Fast that not enough people have heard.
nice.
All right, let's move on. Next up, we have another new one from Daniel Caesar called Let Me Go. You weren't a big fan of his last single. Did this one do anything for you, or is it just not your thing?
You know, man, I have to say his voice has a very sincere feeling to it on this one, and I actually really liked this one.
hey, I really liked this track as well. Neither of his singles have been his best in my opinion, but he still has just one of the best voices in R&B today, no question.
Yep.
Next up is a new one from Dreamville members JID and Lute called My Boy. It looks like it's going to be a part of the soundtrack for Creed 3. Are you a fan of the Rocky or Creed movies at all?
I've seen Rocky 1, 2, 3. I have not seen any of the Creed movies though. I didn't know
Highly
that.
recommend Creed 1 for sure.
I'll watch it. They were talking about it on SNL with Michael B. Jordan. I think he's in it, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
have
he
not
stars
watched
in
it.
those. He's Apollo Creed's son. And
Got
Rocky
it.
trains him like in the first few. And then I think this one, those were directed by the same director as the Black Panther movies, so they're really, really good. This one is like his first time directing. So we'll see how it goes. But definitely give Creed 1 a watch when you have some time.
I
But
will do
what
that.
did you think of this track?
Man, Jit has some fucking skill, dude, and he is just honing in on it. This beat is
Mhm.
fucking great, and Lute's verse is great also, man. I really liked this track. This is a great track.
I I'm going to agree with you, but I also was not a big fan of it because I like the instrumental and the verses are decent. But if I hear the words "my boy" again anytime soon, I'm gonna jump onto a fucking Mortal Kombat spike, Brandon. I
All
can't
right.
do it.
All right, my boy. We can move on.
Thank you. God damn it. Fatality. All right. Okay, up next we have a new one that you threw on here. I'm going to emphasize that you threw this on here from Logic and Norah Jones called Paradise 2. And big surprise, I don't like it. But you
That,
already knew that. I'm a hater. You're not. So what did you think of it?
look, man, I know you don't like Logic. I do. He's corny as fuck, but I'll give you that. But he can rap, bro. Norah Jones sounds fucking great, and the beat on
Sure.
this one is clean as hell. What is there something
It's not as
specific you don't?
offensively it's not as offensively bad as some of his other tracks. I don't feel the need to explain myself with this, Brandon.
You
I
don't
just
have
do
to.
not like I don't like Logic. What did you think of his review of Fantano's review?
What did you think of Fantano's review of Logic's review of Fantano? We're getting into we're getting into some deep shit, man.
You're right. It's best we just stop. Are we in the dream or the dream within the dream?
Yeah, the answer to that is yes. I actually thought that was really clever marketing from Logic. I think that
Sure.
they're probably friends, and it's probably all marketing. Logic obviously is putting a new project out, even though he retired
Hmm.
a couple years ago, which is just fucking weird.
Hmm.
And I
Hmm.
thought that was I actually thought that both Logic's review of Fantano and Fantano's review of Logic's review of Fantano were just honestly they were done pretty well. So I thought it was fun.
Yeah, like everything Logic does. It was a little bit corny, but I will agree that it was actually pretty funny and good marketing. I haven't watched his most recent music video, but I believe he has like Jay and Silent Bob in it. So, dude's got connections and he is using them.
Yeah, man.
Okay, let's move into some EDM, shall we?
Okay.
All right, next up we have a neat little proggy techno track from Aitor, Ronda, and Pig&Dan called Tomahawk. Are you enjoying this one?
This is a fucking banger, John. Incessant kicks, bass line that just won't fucking quit. They've got these buzzsaw synths. I loved this. The reverbed vocal samples are fucking cool. I fucking loved this. Did you like it as much as I did?
Yeah, man, I thought this one was good. I like how they make it a little more texture heavy as it progresses to keep things interesting, but simply put, it's appropriately named. It really does sound like a tomahawk just flying across the dance floor.
Right?
All right, next up we have a new collab from DRS, Tyler Daly, and Calibre called I Remember. It is a solid drum and bass track with some hip hop and R&B worked in. The vocals are really soulful and the verses are good, but it's that constant groove that really ties this one together. I really enjoyed it. What were your thoughts on it?
It is right up my fucking alley. Some
Of
jazzy
course.
drum and bass, man. I sent you the Boiler Room mix, Calibre's Boiler Room mix. Did you have a chance to check that out, listen to it at all?
I did. I think I text you back. Fuck.
Yeah, it's very good, man. It's very good.
Yeah.
He's
That was
he's
my confirmation of watching.
he's it's very good. I'll leave a link to that in the show notes so everybody else can enjoy it. Caliber needs a little bit more love. He's definitely a pillar in the drum and bass community, but outside of the drum and bass community, I don't think many people know him. So
I don't think so either. I'm glad we got to break some of his stuff down.
Right?
All right. Up next, we have a new one from Feed Me called Ghost Synths. And as always, I'm just dying to know what you have to say about new Feed Me music. So talk to me about this.
We have new Feed Me this week, John.
What a sentence.
This was an exciting week. It really, really was. This was a surprise. I'm not on the socials. I don't know if he posted something or not. I don't know if you saw that he was getting ready to release something, but
I did not.
yeah, man, this track is much more house, much more of a house feel to it, and I love when he does stuff like that. He did on, I believe it was High Street Creeps. He does Dazed, although it could be his other record where he does Dazed, which is more of a progressive kind of down tempo house track, and I loved that. But this is much more of an up tempo house track, and I think it's fucking great. As is no surprise. Think we'll get a house album from him this year.
I hope so.
That'd be neat,
That would be
right?
fucking awesome. I mean, more than anything, I want just a pure electro house album from him again. That's
God.
the beginning, middle, and end of it. I want Muscle Rollers too. Like that's shoot me to the fucking moon listening to that.
Yeah, Feed
But
Me's Escape from Electric Mountain is a fucking wild ride of an EP, man.
incredible. Those two releases were back to back, weren't they? His first
Yes.
album and that. Yeah,
Yep.
just incredible. Incredible.
Yeah, he had high output for a minute, and then I think he made some money and was like, you know what, I'm a chill.
Yeah, and then what was the last like single around that era? Was it Calamari Tuesday? That album was kind of the end of that era of
Yeah,
his music.
yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah,
But his album in 2021 was very good, also. I still listen to that on the regular, actually.
well, and then I Do Coke just became one of like the biggest EDM songs of the last decade too.
Da 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 da. I do coke.
It's a perfect song. You can't fuck with a sec. That's Rumble. It's just perfect. You can't touch it.
Nope, can't do it.
Yeah, man, I really liked this one. My only complaint is it was a little too short. I would love an extended mix of this.
Same, super same.
Next up, we have a new one from Moonwalk called Dark Waves. This track is 4 minutes, but it feels like one because it is so good. There's
Right.
not a second wasted, man. Like, and it leaves me wanting more every time. I've only been listening to Moonwalk for the past couple of years, but I already feel confident enough to say this is exactly what classic Moonwalk sounds like to me. I'm going to assume you're a fan of this one as well.
Yeah, loving Moonwalk's output lately. There's some great progressive house, man, and you're right. It felt like 1 minute. It should be 8. You know?
Yeah, yeah. It could have been. I wouldn't know the difference. Like time does not exist when listening to this song.
I think Moonwalk and vintage culture have like kind of cornered this little prog house corner, and they're just beating it up. You know, like
Dog, if they were around 10 years ago, they would have tore the Hudson down at a candy
oh my
festival.
god.
This dropping at one of those, there'd be some teeth grinding in that audience, I'm sure.
There was anyways, but we won't go
Yeah,
there.
there was even when music wasn't playing and nobody was there.
There's a reason why they stole your gum and sold it back to you after a couple hours.
God damn it. It was funny being on the patio with you at that place when we would just watch people getting arrested and as like a parade leaving the place.
My God, man. And there was so many too. Oh, that was a good time.
Dude, so many. I couldn't believe going to those back then that they were legal in any way. I
They
was
really
like,
shouldn't have been, man. They
I
really
mean,
shouldn't
they
have
pretty
been.
much weren't, but they were. It was very weird. What a time.
Yeah, what a time to be
Um,
alive.
all right. Yeah. Up next, we have a new one from Eats Everything and SheZar called Get Up. It's got that late 90s, early 2000s house feel. Those classic show me love style vocals and album artwork that looks like a Honey I Shrunk the Kids movie poster concept. It's a really fun track, man. I like it. Did you enjoy this one?
Oh yeah, man. This has been my morning listen.
Really? This is the first one you go to, or just every morning it cycles on?
Actually, every day I get in the car, I throw this on, wakes me up on my way to work at 6.
I love that. I'm gonna have
Yeah.
to try that next morning drive I do.
Definitely feels like classic 90s house, man. That bass line is just, it's everything, man.
It's beautiful. That bass line is incredible.
Yep.
Next up, we have a new one from Fernando Garrido called Destello. You are a much bigger fan of this like minimalistic and punishing style of techno. So tell me how you're feeling about this one.
We have arrived at my song of the week.
God damn it! I knew it. I knew it.
My man, this is a wild ride. It
It
is.
is.
It's about 6 minutes, just under 6 minutes of just punishing techno, man. I've been kind of diving into some producers and labels of techno music lately. This is actually an EP. You could say it's really just 2 tracks and a remix of this song on here, but it was. I think this one was actually self released, but I found him through I want to say it was Bedrock Records or something like that, and that's something that he had released like maybe even a couple years ago on Bedrock. But this is something that Ben Clock would play under a bridge in Belgium at 8 a.m. Like this is that fucking track that's like let's rally. You know, I don't know,
Yeah.
man. This is right up my fucking alley. It was actually my song of the week was a hard choice this week. It was either Moonwalk or this Fernando Garrido, who apparently is criminally under fucking rated. He has something like under 300 monthly listeners on Spotify, but I'm sure a lot of techno labels aren't doing their best business on Spotify. I think they're probably doing most on Beatport, but I don't know, man. I really like this one. I really like this one.
Yeah, I think I saw you posted about him on Reddit, so I was like, I have a feeling Brandon's going to be preaching the gospel of Fernando on this week's episode, and I was not wrong.
My man, this is right up my fucking alley.
It is. And for what it was, I liked this. But as you know, this style of techno really isn't for me. It's kind of funny that both of our songs of the week this week are ones that you and I aren't really into on the opposite end of the spectrum. I think it's the first time that's happened. It's not really unanimous, but both excellent songs in their own right.
Oh, yeah, most definitely. I respect your choice.
Yeah, I respect yours as well, man. Yours is the most Brandon choice possible this week. That's why I love it. All right. Next up, we have the song I had the most trouble sorting this week, and that is Moving On by this group, Arizona. It's an up-tempo indie pop track disguised as an EDM track, but it got into the EDM section of our playlist like 3 kids stacked inside of a trench coat. So props to it. I thought it was pretty good. Not a lot to review on it. I don't really know anything about this group. So talk to me about this group and tell me your thoughts on the track.
Are you saying that this track is a track playing a track disguised as another track?
Exactly. Yes.
I actually found Arizona watching a Coachella stream. I think it was like 2017 or something like that. I think it was the year they played it. It could have been another festival stream I was watching, but unlikely. And I remember being like, "What? Who the fuck is this band?" And looking them up, really liking a lot of their output. They put out an album that I really dig. Let me see, what's the album called? Gallery in 2017. I listened to their album Asylum in 2019. I didn't quite like it as much as I liked Gallery, but I really liked this track, and I wasn't too envious of you actually for sorting it, because you're right, it does sound like a number of things, and normally that's kind of not my thing, but I actually really enjoyed this one. I have no idea if this is the start of an album rollout or anything like that, but I liked it, and I'm glad you did too.
Yeah. I'm not sure if it's part of an album rollout either. They've been posting about it on social media, but I haven't seen a release date or title like that yet.
Nice.
Next up, we have an interesting jazz rock fusion you threw on here called Same by a group called A Certain Ratio. Tell me your thoughts on this one, because it was a bit of a curveball.
So I have been powering through my Listen to Next playlist. It was at like 290 something hours. I'm down to like 230, although I added a few albums to it today.
Of course you did.
And this band happened to be one of the bands on there. I think I was recommended to listen to them, and I just kind of threw it on my Listen to Next and forgot about it. And then it came up on my Listen to Next, and I was like, what the fuck is this? Clicked follow, forgot about them again, and then all of a sudden, this came up as a new release, and I was like, all right, let's see. This is like contemporary soul funk. This is...
Yeah.
One of the reasons why I put this on, though, is because this is mixed and mastered to fucking perfection. I don't know how many different speakers or headphones you listen to this on, but this is top notch. Like, whoever mixed and mastered this has been doing that for 50 years, it sounds like. There's so much fun. There's so much energy here. The bass line is killer. I needed you to hear it. So what did you think about it?
I liked it, man. It's not something I'd personally seek out or listen to regularly, but it's insanely creative music. And I almost sorted this just by itself because it's
Right.
really not like rock. This is more jazz than anything, but I just put it where I put it. I enjoyed it though.
Good, good. I'm glad. This is a curveball. I don't think I've thrown you a real curveball in a long time. So
Not like this, but they're almost always jazz.
what does Angela say in the office? Just play the right notes.
Yeah, God damn it. Oh, but ironically, she has pictures of babies holding jazz instruments. Kind of weird.
That is correct.
Next up is a new one from Stand Atlantic called Killer. I wasn't really feeling this one whenever it would come on this week. Did you have a different reaction to it?
You know, it's got those trappy, weird hi hats that I actually think they incorporated a lot cleaner than other bands like Magnolia Park do, but I feel a little bit of trend chasing here, and that turned me off a little bit. I actually did like this track, but every time every time it came on, I kind of rolled my eyes a little bit because they're right up front, you know?
Definitely. I think you enjoyed their albums a little bit more than I did as well, so that's not really surprising.
Right.
Up next, man, we have a previously unreleased track from Linkin Park called Lost, featuring the late Chester Bennington on vocals. It was incredible to hear his voice again, but it once again served as a cold reminder of the talent that we lost. But I don't think this track was meant to bum us out. It was released to celebrate the 20th anniversary of Meteora, which is one of the most influential albums in my life and probably yours and probably every boy our age and
Right.
in all of the early 2000s rock music history, to be honest. So, how are you feeling about this one? Did it take you back?
Oh, man. Hearing Chester's voice is crazy. The video they put out for this is kind of corny, but man, this is really good. I'm actually surprised something like this was cut from the album. I think this would have been a great track to put right before Numb, which is the album.
Isn't Numb the opener?
I think it's the album closer.
Oh, is that? I was going to say, is it Numb or on? Now I'm going to have to look. Keep going, though.
I'm going to look right now.
You're going to.
Yeah, I really like this song, man. So where do you put their albums, man? Are you a Meteora guy or a Hybrid Theory kind
Oh,
of guy?
hybrid theory all the way. So like Meteora was actually the time where like I thought that they were getting too popular. Like I was like hybrid theory and reanimation day one purchases, and Meteora I finally caved in like 2005, and I was like, God damn it, I'm buying Meteora.
Yeah, Numb got a lot of play. It got a lot of play because it was a little bit more melodic than than their one step closer to the edge. I'm about to break sort of sound. Which
Yeah, it was like, are we gonna have a Hoobastank problem here?
all right, hold on. Is Hoobastank a problem in your eye? I'm just kidding.
Well, I think that Crawling in the Dark fucking rips. Like that's like an edema adjacent like 90s grunge rock track, and then they did The Reason, which is like MTV pop rock. So I don't know. We'll get into them on a different podcast. Let's keep it on point here.
I have some words to say about Hoobastank, believe it or not. I'm sure you believe
If
that.
you want to go, please
No,
dive in.
we're good. We should get into them at a later date, though. I really liked this track. I'm excited for whatever comes next with Meteora, then the 20th year anniversary
I
rollout.
think we're getting 6 more unreleased tracks.
My God, that's amazing. It's nice to hear Chester Bennington back with something new. It was cool when Grey Days released that stuff that they had done with him
Yeah,
prior to
forgot about
Linkin
that.
Park. But it was so like close to it, but not quite fucking there. And to hear him with Linkin Park on something that nobody's ever heard before is honestly
Sick.
really special. So I like
What
this
about
one.
what about you? Where do you rank their albums? What's your favorite?
Hybrid Theory all day.
Okay, so we're the same in that regard. Are you going to be
Oh yeah.
checking this vinyl out at all?
We looked at it. I looked at it. They're doing like a box set. It's like $200, and honestly,
Nah.
I'll whenever they repress Meteora, I'm sure I can find one for $30. I have Hybrid
Yup.
Theory already, so I think
Fuck
I'm
yeah.
set for like the moment. There's not. It's really those two albums that are really it. Minutes to Midnight is pretty good. Living Things is all right. I didn't really
The
like One
only
More
other one
Light. You
would
know.
be the Jay-Z Linkin Park Live. That would be the only other one I would want.
Whew.
I don't even know if that's ever been pressed though.
I'd have to look. I'd have to look it up.
Yeah, I'm sure he has the rights to it.
I'm sure.
All right, man. Moving on, we have a new one from Suicide Silence called Dying Life. We've heard a handful of singles from their upcoming album, Remember You Must Die, and all of them have been really good so far. This track is no different. I'm expecting this one to be a great release. Where's your level of anticipation at for their new album after hearing this?
My man, can we just take a second? Just like, I just need to revel in the fact that we got so much new Brandon music this week. We got new Suicide Silence, we got new Feed Me, we got new M83. This is just wow, February 10th, 2023. This album is shaping up to be pretty good. I just need to consume it all at once. I think this track is a little bit more generic than the other tracks that they put out as singles. But I have high hopes for the
Sure.
album, and I still think that this album artwork is just badass. So
It's awesome. It's awesome. Okay, man. To wrap up the singles, we have a new collab from Lamb of God and Kreator called State of Unrest. The story behind this one is that when the initial State of Unrest tour was postponed due to the pandemic, Mark Morton and Mile Petroza started working on a song together. Once the music was done, they got Riley Gale of Power Trip to do the vocals. Power Trip was also supposed to be the opening act for the tour. Tragically, Gale passed away before he was ever able to record vocals for the song. After another postponement of that tour, they met back up to finish the song with Randy Blythe and Petroza on vocals themselves. And this is that version that we're talking about. All of the proceeds for this single will be donated to Dallas Hope Charities in Gale's name, which I believe he worked with pretty closely and was a big fan of. And I hope this song does well for that reason alone. But backstory aside, what did you think of it?
honestly, I'm just stoked that Lamb of God is so massive. It's funny because back in like 2006, 2007, when I was like first discovering metal and like Sacrament was becoming a thing, I really didn't think that Lamb of God was going to be the one that was going to be headlining festivals. Not that their talent isn't there, but more so that I mean they're heavy. They're heavy as fuck. And I'm so glad that Lamb of God got with Kreator. I don't know how much you know about Kreator, but they're fucking badass. They have an album called Pleasure to Kill. It's a great 80s metal album. And I think that their chemistry on this track is fucking great. Yeah, man, I really liked this. Randy, of course, is just a fucking beast on the mic and just destroys this track. Yeah, man, I there's like not many Lamb of God tracks I dislike, so it's hard to dislike one something that Randy Blythe himself has blessed, you know.
For sure. Yeah, I didn't know much about Kreator before this. Sounded great on this. I'll have to dive more into that album.
You should listen to Pleasure to Kill. It's just 80s metal, man. There's not much to it except for that it is good. You know,
Hey, I love 80s metal. Have you ever heard Blessed by a Broken Heart?
it sounds familiar, but I can't put an album cover to the
Oh, man.
name.
We might have to do an album swap with those two and do an episode about it.
Bet, let's do it.
All right, man. Next up, we have the first of two EPs to talk about this week, which is Beyond the Grave's self-titled EP. Give me your thoughts on this one.
Alrighty, here is my semi-weekly underground heavy band segment. This starts right now.
My favorite.
I think this is good, man. Great breakdowns. Vocals are good. I actually kept coming back to this one this week. I think some more melody could help with the band, kind of bringing it all together. But the riffs and the breakdowns are right where they need to be. I love underground heavy stuff so much, man. You can really feel the passion, and this EP is no exception. I liked this one. What did you think about it?
I enjoyed it. All three songs just go. There's no time wasted, no filler. It's in your face and to the point, man. I liked it. Not much else to say about it though.
And I know that as soon as you see these logos, you're like, okay, Brandon. But I actually really like this specific logo. Whoever did their art is right where it's really neat, man. I really like it.
This one has like an aesthetically pleasing symmetry to it.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, and I can actually sort of read it, sort of. All right. Okay, next up we have Fantasy Chapter 1 by M83. It seems like instead of going the singles route, they just dropped a collection of songs to get us ready for the upcoming album. Not my personal favorite approach, but not my least favorite either. Shout out Mount Lange. In terms of the music on here, though, it's. I'll give you a second.
Thank you. Oh my god.
Oh man, that was a disaster.
Carry on, my boy.
Okay, thank you. In terms of the music on here, man, it's a mixture of ambient shoegaze and psychedelic indie pop. I'm excited to see how they expand upon all of these things when the full album drops. But what was your reaction to hearing this EP?
I was actually surprised it was going to be an EP. I figured we were going to get another single this week, but we didn't. We got a bunch of new tracks. I like you said, it's kind of it's really a case by case basis where this works, and I do think that this is working for M83, especially on like a longer album, which I'm assuming that they're going to put out. Maybe one more EP, but if there's two more EPs,
I hope not.
my man. Look, this is just Ascension music. I could drown in these synths, and I'd be happy to do it. The opening track, Water Deep, is just fucking beautiful. Earth to Sea is ethereal, and the crescendo so well in the last couple of minutes. The kind of ATB adjacent pitchy synth lines are just so nice, man. I really am excited for the next installment.
I know you said it's ascension music, but if you're drowning, then you're descending into the water. So it's also descension music, Brandon. It is everything.
You know what? Fair. You got me.
Thank you. Just let me have this one.
I'm gonna let you have it.
Thank you. I worked hard on that one. Are you ready to talk about some albums?
Bro, we got a lot of them. Let's go.
All right. First up, we got Paramore, This Is Why. And I'm going to have to sit with this one for a while, but I really enjoyed my first week with it. The first half of the album is a nice mix of that pop funk and grungy art rock, reminiscent of like Dry Cleaning.
There you go.
You First and Figure Eight feel just like classic Paramore with their big hooks and punchy instrumentals in the middle. And the last three tracks go in more of an alternative direction. Haley's vocals are excellent, and all of the instrumentation is just as sharp and creative. From a lyrical perspective, I'm really enjoying the constant tug of war between anxiety and apathy on this album. You could really feel the period of time, not just in their lives, but in this country and world at large that helped shape the core themes of this album. And I think that that's something everybody can relate to when listening to it. It still feels a little early for me to confidently score this one, but since it's Brandon's face where the points mean absolutely nothing, I'm going to give it an 8, and my standouts are The News and You First. What did you think of the new Paramore?
All right, for anybody listening, John and I have not talked about Paramore at all for the last 7 days, since the last time we talked about Paramore.
Correct.
I was expecting
Check
to
out
like
last
this,
week's episode.
but I really, really enjoyed this. This Is Why is the perfect way to start this album. It's fun, poppy, and it's just a fantastic bass line. I think the singles they chose for this album were perfect, kind of a great amalgam of what we were to expect. The News is great and kind of has that post-punk riff that I just can't get enough of. Running Out of Time is the fucking anthem for chronic procrastinators. Quote, Be There in 5 hyperbolically would be a fantastic shirt. The lyrics...
Hot topics on it.
The lyrics on, what is it, C'est Comme Ça, are the perfect kind of just sardonic and apathetic that I just can't get enough of it. I looked up what C'est Comme Ça means. It's basically French for it really do be like that.
It is what it is.
Big Man, Little Dignity sounds like Tennis and Interpol got together to write a song, and I am 1,000% here for that.
Love that combo.
And you know I like that jazzy ending. You First is great, witty lyrics and on theme for the album so far, which is, in my opinion, you're an asshole, I'm an asshole, everyone's an asshole. I feel like the sense of belonging. I feel this like sense of belonging when listening to this album. This kind of energy has obviously been built up for a few years around the world, and I feel like Haley's really understanding how people have been feeling. I really enjoyed this record, and I think they're going to have some amazing shows on this tour. All the band members brought it on this one. Gave it an 8. My standout was The News. We really just hit the same themes on both of our reviews.
I think that speaks to how clear the message of this record is.
Yeah, probably.
All right, man. You ready to talk about Pierce the Veil's new album, The Jaws of Life?
I can't wait.
Talk to me about it. I want to hear.
All right. So this is actually going to be a pretty divisive album in Pierce the Veil's discography for the simple fact
Agree.
that it isn't quite like anything they've ever put out before. This is, however, a post-hardcore album in the classic sense. I said this on the first single that they dropped, and I heard it like almost immediately. I was like, they're going for a mid-90s, early 90s post-hardcore vibe. And I'm just going to double down here. I have been fascinated by post-hardcore, hardcore, and punk for like a long time. As subgenres tend to do, it's changed. This doesn't mean that it's a bad thing, but I think in order for things to be kind of pushed into the future, I think returning to the beginnings and original influences is actually pretty important. That's what they did with this album. I went and listened to some Fugazi and some of the 80s Steve Albini stuff just to kind of frame my mind around it after I listened to this first, after I listened to the Jaws of Life for the first time. And honestly, I think this album is going to age like a fine wine. I think everybody hating it is going to go back to it in a couple of years and be like, you know what, this was fucking good. If you go and listen to the band Refused's The Shape of Punk to Come, it will be very clear how much of an influence they took. The Shape of Punk to Come came out in 1998. I don't know if you've heard it. You probably should, John. The synths.
I like Refused.
The reverbed vocals, the song structures, the riffing crescendos that just kind of bring it all together. All of the elements are there for just an incredible album, man. Death of an Executioner is the perfect opener for this album, and as it incorporates everything we're going to hear on the record moving forward. Then we get to Past the Nirvana, which we covered when it came out, and just those riffs hit so hard, man. In the context of the album, I like this track even better, which I really liked it when it came out. This is just pure early post-hardcore with that angsty lyrical content that Pierce the Veil is known for. They really just wrapped their lyrics up in these late 90s nuanced hardcore riffs. It's kind of beautiful, man. Emergency Contact is an obvious earworm, and the lyrics are just slathered with emo core angst. The title track, Jaws of Life, is a beautiful halfway point for the record. The closing track, 12 Fractures, is kind of like the only track that I feel doesn't fit. It's like a fine closure for the album or whatever, but it's just kind of breezy, and the rest of the album isn't. Overall, man, this album hit me right in the face. I enjoyed every second of it. Even if I don't agree that 12 Fractures belongs on it, I do think that this is a fantastic album. It wasn't what everyone wanted. It wasn't what anybody expected, but I think it fits almost perfectly in the renaissance that these niche subgenres are going through, and is going to age really gracefully as a great record for Pierce the Veil, even if people are a little taken aback by it at first. I'm a big fan of this. I really wasn't expecting to be such a big fan of it, but I really am. I gave it a 9, man. My standout was Past the Nirvana.
Wow. Fucking love it. I was not expecting the 9 even after all that. That's incredible. I agree. 12 Fractures is the only square peg in a round hole here.
What'd you think?
So once again, man, our reviews just go hand in hand perfectly because you set up my first point, which is they might have made the same mistake LS Dunes did by releasing the heaviest song on the album as the lead single. That could set up people for disappointment. But I think that a majority of their fan base will like this because I consider myself a part of that fan base, and I have really been enjoying this album. It's a little bit softer than we were hoping for. That could have to do with their new drummer, or it could just be they're softening their edges a bit. It's not a complete departure from the more screamo heavy sound that they had during their early years, but to use my favorite album of theirs as an example, it's definitely more Kissing in Cars than it is Paraphernalia. They try some new things out here on the title track as well as that closing track, 12 Fractures. Some of them work, some of them don't. But it's a lot of sappy shit on this album. Even When I'm Not With You, Emergency Contact, Resilient, Shared Trauma. I like all of those songs, but I wish we got a few more tracks like Past the Nirvana and So Far So Fake. But those minor complaints aside, this is an excellent album with terrific album cuts as well. Death of an Executioner, Damn the Man, Save the Empire, both great. This album's really good, man, and I continue to have a lot of fun every time I listen to it. I have this one at an 8 right now. My stand-up is a toss-up between Past the Nirvana and So Far So Fake.
So Far So Fake is a very good track.
So catchy. I love the guitars. It's kind of like plucky jazzy. I think that his voice just does really well on that upbeat rhythm. I think his writing snaps to that melody really well.
Yeah, I think they really worked hard on this, and I think that people who are really just in it for the screamo need to slow their hearts down for a minute and take a breath and just pass the Nirvana to their friends as they listen to it.
So you gave this a nine. I'm curious, is this your favorite album of theirs, or do you have any of theirs at a 10?
This is my favorite Pierce the Veil album.
Oh wow. Okay, fuck yeah, dude. That's awesome.
I
Oh,
I
I thought it was great.
I don't know. I know that that is going to be an unpopular opinion this week, but it might not be in a few years.
I don't think it's that unpopular. Selfish Machines is mine, but I feel like you could pick any of their albums and not be wrong. It's
It's true.
this is the rare case though where the album you discovered them during is not your favorite of theirs anymore,
Right.
which we were just talking about last week. So that's impressive, man. All around great album. I really hope people check it out. It's
Yep.
awesome that they're back, and I hope I catch them on the road again, man. They're fucking great live. Have you ever seen them?
I have not seen them.
Highly recommend.
Maybe I will on this tour.
Well, you're gonna see King Gizzard this year, so you should just be saving all of your serotonin for that.
You know I will, man. You know, if I come back and my face is melted, just know that that's normal.
Oh yeah, yeah. You're just gonna have to wear a T-shirt that says I went to a King Gizzard show. People will get it. All right, man. Talk to me about this new In Flames album, Foregone.
Alrighty. So, In Flames has had some interesting discourse online in preparation for the album to drop, and additionally, the just my curiosity when it was happening. I fell across some very interesting forum threads on Reddit, on
Hit
Rate
me.
Your Music, on All Music, and all that fun stuff. So, from my research, a lot of people either stopped listening to them or at least like them less than they used to. This shift kind of occurred after the release of their album Come Clarity in 2006. They've changed their sound to be a bit softer in areas and have even more melody than most melodic death metal bands of their caliber. And that seems to rub people the wrong way. I've enjoyed most of their music since Come Clarity, and I was actually introduced to In Flames with that album. And I've subsequently listened to all of their old stuff, which is really good, man. They put, I think, Lunar or something or other is just a fucking amazing album. And the Jester Race is also just a fantastic record. Look, I think that a sound change to be a little bit more like palatable is not something that I would shake a stick at for this band, only because they have worked with it and retained the core of what makes them them. Harsh vocals, heavy riffs, melodic elements. They just kind of transferred some of that melody to the vocals as well. Can we still call this melodic death metal? I don't think so. Probably not. All of that being said, I think that this band kind of lost their touch a little bit with some of these lyrics, man. Some of it's a little cringy. Feels like they took a page out of the wrong book to write these, that book being Muse's last album. I really like the majority of the instrumentals, though. And I think that the melodies are really what shine here. But the real star of the show for this whole album is the drummer. Did you do any research into the current band members of this album or
No,
of this band right now? Okay.
I have not.
Their current drummer is Tanner Wayne, who, upon further investigation, is someone who we've heard quite a bit of. In 1999 through 2009, he was the drummer for Scary Kids Scaring Kids. In
Oh shit.
2010 through 2012, he was the drummer for Chiodos. In 2014 through 16, he was Suicide Silence's drum tech. And he has been In Flames drummer since 2018. I thought that was just interesting. Anyways, back to the album. It starts off great with like this Gaelic kind of acoustic guitar intro, and then it gets into the State of Slow Decay, which I gotta say is such a great track. Meet Your Maker is one where we really start to hear a lot more melody and clean vocals, and that transfers into Bleeding Out, which is let's be honest, it's like a really soft song. The two-parter tracks with Foregone Part 1 and 2, Part 1 is badass instrumentally. However, the lyrics lack a little something for me. As a lyric guy, they could have been awesome, but it's basically just like four choruses and like a couple of lines in a verse. Part 2 is where it starts to get really soft. I do like it though. Overall, I thought the album was alright. It wasn't as heavy as I wanted it to be, and it stands on its own as a metal album, but it's not one of my favorite In Flames albums in their discography. Some cringy and lazy lyrics and kind of overall flow of the record are really my only two complaints, but I think they hold a little bit more weight from a band that I expect more from. I actually only gave this album a 5. Standout was State of Slow Decay. What did you think?
Interesting. So I don't love it, but I actually thought that this was the best that they've sounded in a while. And I think that this has been the case with a lot of bands we've been covering lately. Keep in mind, I did not dive into the lyrics on this album, so I can't validate any of those, but I will take your word that they are as cringy as you say they are. I just don't know what it was about the 2010s that made rock music feel so uninspired for a majority of bands during that time. But I'm glad bands like them are still putting out good music. Like, I think what this album has working for it is that it's heavy, melodic, and anthemic. It's a good album if you're into this type of metal. I have it in the 5 to 6 range. My standout is The Great Deceiver.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah, I mean, I was more interested on your words in this one, and you gave me a lot. That's insane that that's the same drummer.
You know, I was so interested. I was like, fuck, dude, these drums are just out of control. Who is this? And lo and behold, we've been listening to this guy for a lot of years. So,
dude, that's insane. Scary Kids and Scaring Kids and Chiodos into Suicide Silence's drum tech.
Yeah, man.
What a career, man. That's a great gig.
Imagine putting that shit on your resume, bro. Like,
no, I can't.
My man, he's got it.
All righty. You ready to talk about tennis?
Let's fucking do this.
Okay, man. This is their new album, Pollen, and I absolutely loved it. A love story about a hotel waitress and a valet. Sign me up, man. Forbidden Doors, Let's Make a Mistake Tonight, One Night with the Valet, and Hotel Valet could all be considered my standouts. But Glorietta and Gibraltar both kick ass. The title track is great. It is a great album, beginning to end. I have it between an 8 and a 9. My standout is all 4 of the songs that I mentioned earlier. I'm still sitting this one because we had a lot to review this week, but I am absolutely loving it so far. What about you, man?
I am so glad we're in your tennis era here, man. Tennis is one of these bands where I know what I'm going to hear before I hear it. And this can really be a bad thing for some bands. However, this is just not the case for tennis. They always throw like slight additional elements in to surprise me, like some of the synth work on this one and like the concept, obviously. I think I just like their style so much that it doesn't get old. This album is a little bit more rich in tones, just a little bit more full than some of their previous albums. Can't really put my finger exactly on what makes it this way, but I can tell you I fucking like it. As always, they've made an atmospheric indie pop album to throw on a Sunday afternoon while hanging out in the sun. Just a sweet spot of indie pop, and they've really shown themselves to be proudly holding this torch. Refinement and detail may not be as exciting as a brand new sound, but I appreciate it for what it is. Really liked this one, man. I got it at an 8. My standout is Pillow for a Cloud.
Don't fix what ain't broken.
For real. Like...
What was their last album called? Swimmer, the one that I like. Is that it?
I think so. Let me check.
Yeah, giant fan of that album,
Swimmer.
and I love this one just as much, which is so rare for a band to have 0 drop off. But yes, this era of tennis is great. I really do hope to dive into their older albums one day if I could ever stop listening to these two.
Right. I really like this. I really like this sound. Honestly, bro, I got to tell you, man, it's not even like their most popular album, but Yours Conditionally is very good. Like it's a great record, man. You should.
I'll get there one day.
That should be your next listen for tennis, man. Think you'll like it.
I will. I'll make that a priority for you, just so we can talk about it.
My man.
Okay, man. Let's close this week out with this new Kelela album, Raven. So So many great albums this week. Dear God. Again, I love this. Kelela is an R&B experimentalist that pushes the boundaries of every genre that she touches. A lot has changed in the 5 years since she released an album, but one thing that has not is her incredible voice. This album touches on a lot of themes, including, but not limited to, discovery, culture, identity, and catharsis. And she does so over a variety of different instrumentals, everything from breakbeat to drum and bass to contemporary R&B to UK garage, each allowing her to express herself in different ways. This album is dense, but it moves along nicely, and things just click due to great sequencing. Some of my personal highlights are, of course, the two singles, Happy Ending and On the Run. She sounds excellent over the Kaytranada production style. And I love that she still gave us some more traditional stripped down R&B as well with tracks like Let It Go and Closure. There's even some like great late album songs on this album with Enough for Love that just sound just as good as the lead singles to me, which is pretty rare. But like I said, it's a dense album. I'm still digging into this one. Some of the more end of the album cuts I don't know quite as well as the beginning, but I'm pretty blown away by this one so far. Definitely in the 8 to 9 range. Stand out as a toss up between On the Run and Closure right now. How are you feeling about it?
I bet you think you know how I felt about this one, but I don't know. Maybe you're right. Look, man, she has a fantastic voice. Let's get that out of the way right now. I honestly wasn't entirely sure what to expect out of this project, even though we got like a number of singles for it. What we did get is a pop album that kind of borders R&B, it borders house, it borders soul and techno, weirdly. The production on Happy Ending is just sublime. The jazz influence on Let It Go is something that is just right up my alley. But I wish it was a little bit of a different tempo, especially after being right after a song like Happy Ending, which got me to kind of thinking about it. And the structure of the album is interesting. She had enough time as the album clocks in at like just an over an hour, and she had the ability to like kind of maybe create little suites. Instead, she or whoever she hired to do these things just kind of chose to just conglomerate all of the tracks together. I feel like the structure is lacking. I might like restructure it in a playlist and listen to it like that. Missed Call is fucking great. We've got some jungle, some D&B beats with her like soulful voice and these funk guitars. Just absolutely fantastic production on this track. Contact is like clearly one of the standouts on this one, and it kind of has been since we got it as a single. Look, man, I know that Foolie is kind of a slower track and normally wouldn't be my thing, but the atmosphere she creates on this one is fucking amazing, man.
Really good.
Raven is fucking haunting. It's got this like real techno influence that you just know that I loved, as well as the seamless transition into Bruises, which is also another fucking great track with minimal techno influence. That then slows down into Sorbet is great, but kind of just don't like how it doesn't pick back up.
Much like real sorbet, it's just like okay.
I don't think it's that deep on this one, my man.
Shit's deep, but it ain't that deep.
Overall, man, I think that this album is structured weirdly. I think that the in-track progression is fucking unmatched right now in the pop and R&B world. That I need to give her. The in-track, like per track progression, is unmatched. And I think that I liked it when she did it, and I liked this album when I did, and I didn't like it when I didn't, and I'm unsure how to make that more clear, but I'm going to give it a 6-7. My standout is both Raven into Bruises. I do think, though, that this album is going to grow on me. It could very well turn into a 7 or 8 later in the year, because I do think that it's kind of designed to do that. I'm not calling it off for this one, because the parts I liked, I really fucking liked, and there should be more in the parts I didn't like for me to like. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense. And you hit the nail on the head. I was talking about this album with somebody earlier today, and I believe they used the word grower as well. So I think that that's kind of the thing with an album this dense and this personal. I disagree with you on the note of the sequencing for the most part, but I agree with you on the suites of songs could have made this album a little bit tighter, but I like the way it is personally. I think it will grow on you, but I think your review is fair and your criticisms were valid.
Thanks, man.
Anything else you want to touch on this week? That does it for our albums.
No, man. Honestly, I think I'm good. We've got a number of great things to talk about next week. We have a new cattle decapitation song that just dropped. We have a lot of fun stuff that we're
Oh,
anticipating this
buddy,
year.
we have a new album from Caroline Polachek we're going to be breaking
We
down
sure
next
do.
week. A new album from Skrillex. Two new albums from Ultar. A See You Next Tuesday album, some new Caliuchis. It's gonna be a fun one, man. We hope you all tune in. We will see you then.
Thanks, brother.
Peace.
Peace.